All right. Question number 1. I like this one. If you could tell the new CEO, Michael Dowse of the USTA, one thing, what would it be?
One thing, one suggestion, just one thing.
Yeah, well, one suggestion. Yeah.
It's interesting. The USTA here in America, most talked about tennis program, but I think that's true around the world. The French talk about the French Tennis Federation and so forth and so forth. Mm-hmm. One thing, I would tell him that everybody in his organization needs to be able to teach tennis. When it comes down to a CEO, years ago, trained tennis teachers in a formal setting where they got a degree as a tennis teaching pro manager. And we used to study CEOs like Lee Iacocca, how did he turn Chrysler around? When it comes down to, it doesn't matter if you're working the front desk, if you're stringing rackets, if you're an administrator, I would have everyone teach. And I don't mean give a half-hour lesson and pat the little kid on the head. I think the CEO should learn basics. Einstein, if you know your information, you can explain it to a 6-year-old. Mm-hmm. My brother-in-law tells everybody he went to Michigan and nobody he went to Harvard. He has a Harvard MBA. Now, I heard this story from my mother. Then my brother-in-law, he played it down a little bit. But he was hired by UPS and he went way up the ladder. He wasn't quite the CEO, but he was way up the ladder. And his first days on the job, he had to ride the truck and work with ground level the delivery. So no, I think Rocky 1, are you a pretender or you're a contender? So many people just pretend that they can teach the game. It's amazing how many of the elite coaches, and again, it's not directed towards the USTA, but college tennis, corporate tennis, that everybody should be able to teach tennis. Everybody should know the ready position. Everybody should be able to go out and you imagine if a staff member was assigned, okay, here's your kind of like your pen pal. Okay, you need to spend 6 weeks, find some times and teach a beginner, and then have it become a campaign. So he could do it internally, and then externally that everybody in America, you got to be able to teach a beginner.
Yeah.
And then you would grow the game. But and also too, tennis is way, way too expensive. So if I had a chance to talk to him, I would say, hey, everybody in your organization should be able to teach tennis. You could actually even give a basic test to people.
Yeah.
They need to know the game. I think many people, they move up the ladder, they taught the game. That's how most people enter the profession. And they end up totally dropping the ball hopper, and then they carry the briefcase and they get removed from the game.
Yeah. It's, really you said the ready position. It's tough these days because people can't agree on the ready position anymore.
I used to say it's the only thing people did agree upon.
But they can't. So, basics, fundamentals, there are parameters. And I think there are certain things that people can agree upon, but there's other things that they don't.
No, the strength of the individual always comes out. There will always be individuality, but just basics. So you think about, someone is going to learn to run a sprint. They're going to be taught how to come out of the blocks. Someone's being taught a foul shot in basketball. But why in tennis, that we can't agree that tennis court's a rectangle. If you want the ball to rotate like a circle, you're going to have a circular swing on your ground strokes.
Yeah.
But that's what I would recommend. Recently, I know you helped me out. We went out, a group of us, for 24 months. I was there 21, Tennis Memphis. Mm-hmm. The upside down triangle. Tell the person in charge, the CEO, that everybody needs to teach. And if people watch what we do, we get 8-year-olds to teach quite well.
Yeah. I think for myself, selfishly, what I would like, and it goes into education, one of my buddies is David Ramos over there, who does the video work and a lot of the tagging of the matches, statistical analysis. But every year he films, and also with another friend of ours, Warren Pretorius, who I've known for a long time. But I know they've done a lot of filming there at the US Open every year, and they get tons and tons of footage. And just selfishly, I would love for it, whether if you're a USTA member or a coach, that you could have access to that footage to use in an educational setting, or if it's just to make videos, that would be great. So that would be my one selfish request, would be to be able to make those libraries of video from the US Open available for education.
No, it's good.
All right, next question. Why don't pros go to the net, Steve?
They don't go to the net because they don't go to the net. Brain memory, they're not programmed to go to the net. You think about the game itself. A young kid goes to the net. They go to the net to lose at a faster rate.
Yeah.
That's even true for adult players when they first start out. And all you got to do is watch a club doubles match. When a kid is very short, young 10, 12 and under player, they're easy to lob, easy to pass. So, one, it's brain memory. They're not programmed. Two, they don't want to lose. Three, poor instruction. When it comes down, back to the ready position, okay, on the forehand volley, the elbow is going to be in, the racket face is going to be up at a 45-degree angle. You're going to stop. And just myth after myth is taught.
Yeah.
And, I think we could be clever, too, in the early age groups, a scoring system where if you go to the net, you can even color courts where it's green zone, yellow zone, red zone. And if you're up in the green zone, you get 3 points for winning. Kind of like years ago in basketball, they didn't have the 3-point shot. So to kind of flip it, there has to be a way, because what happens, kids just get stuck in the mud. Mm-hmm. If they're 15 years old, it's kind of like a kid who's a freshman in high school. They play one-up, one-back doubles to win.
Yeah.
What are they going to do when they're a sophomore?
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna play inefficiently.
Yeah. No, I think it goes to the junior tennis. Really, doubles isn't played as much anymore.
Yeah.
And when kids do play, like you said, they have difficult grips to open the racket face, and the path the racket goes down, and they're not serving and volleying anymore.
Yeah, and also the geometry of the court, understanding 130 degrees potential angle, 3 feet from the net, aggressive air margin. If you go to the net, you win 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
It turns into 4 out of 6, 8 out of 12. We talked about that last time. Is 2 out of 3 in schools is a D plus, but in tennis it's an A plus.
Yep.
Even like on a green light point where kids ahead by 2 or more points.
Yeah.
A 12-year-old, hey, I'm going to serve to the body, so the ball comes back to the center. But if you don't serve and volley, you don't serve and volley. Yeah, you have to have 2 things to be a serve and volley, or serve and a volley.
Yeah.
But it's really a crisis. A kid will play years and not go forward.
Yeah. I think, the pros that I've worked with, I've really tried to help them to understand the math behind it, the statistics, but then also just how to get to the net, how and where to play approach shots, and when to serve and volley and where to hit the serve, how to hit the first volley. It was fun working with Max Cressy last fall, and then he was here training with us as well, and to see him do well at the US Open, serving and volleying all the time. He plays tactically very well, even though he's got some stuff to work on for sure. But
yeah, he's got technical holes, but tactically he's playing a superior system. He's forcing the issue.
He's there, yeah.
I was just watching TFO, for example. People say, "Wow, his forehand. His forehand's only a problem if you force against it and tell him, okay, pass me here and pass me there." It's not happening.
Yeah.
It just becomes a slugfest.
Most people talk about the speed of the game is why pros don't go to the net. People can hit winners from everywhere in the court, the strings helping with spin, etc. But
yeah, that's part of it. Years ago, the grass, Wimbledon, 3 of the 4 Grand Slams were on grass, and people were playing with wooden rackets. It's like Bjorn Borg. He won Wimbledon 5 years in a row. He was in the finals 6 years in a row. Mm-hmm. He went forward. But years ago, when you would meet someone from Sweden, you just say, "Okay, they're going to be a baseliner." Mm-hmm. Because if someone is in a ground stroke exchange, they hit 20 ground strokes, and then they go up and end it with 1 volley. You think, "Oh, they never go to the net." But they've played 1 point, and they went to the net. They're 1 for 1.
Yeah.
Like Taylor Fritz the other day, he played almost 300 points, and he went to the net less than 15 times.
Yeah.
Got to figure that, he's with his mom, Kathy May, top 10 in the world. He played a lot of ground games. And he starts the point so well, his serve and his return. Somebody serves, 135 over and over again. Mm-hmm. He's 6'4", but he obviously didn't go forward in the juniors.
Yep. Got to have those instincts. All right. Hopefully that answers that question a little bit. This one is tailored to you personally. Mm-hmm. And it's, Steve Smith.
Yes.
Have you written a book?
Have I written a book? Yes, on a piece of confetti. Publisher Parrish, I think of Mike Costa. He played at the University of Illinois, then he spent time with us. He's on The Daily Show now with Trevor Noah, a character, funny guy. Mm-hmm. When he was staying with us, I told him, Costa, you should write a book. And he did. 101. I should have been the co-author of that book. 101 Tennis Tips with Mike Costa. No, I haven't written a book. We have an electronic book, Tennis Intelligence Applied. It's 25 hours. One of our students made that a manuscript. We have over 3,000 pages on Facebook.
Yeah, that's pretty much a book. The little plug for our Facebook page, you can go back, how many years now? 2008? Is that when that started?
Yeah, there's a narrative, a long short story on our program. It's also on our website.
Yeah.
Journey to the Truth.
Yeah.
But I need to write a book, publish or perish.
Yes.
I'll start tomorrow. Today.
That'd be good. Okay, so along with books, people are asking, well, what are some of our favorite tennis books? Books to help you be a better tennis player.
How about you? What's your favorite tennis
I know for
books?
me, I mean, I'm biased because of all my time with Vic Braden, but I think number one, either Tennis for the Future, the updated version, Tennis 2000, would be one that's great for all aspects, but especially for strokes. I know we both like the Talent Code. I know that's one of yours, but I would pick that as a personal favorite as well. Another one of Vic's books, Mental Tennis. And then I also like the books by Howard Brody, Tennis Science for Tennis Players. So I like to nerd out on some of that stuff, for sure.
I've been fortunate to what I would say is live a book, like you with Braden, but then with others. For me, first one would be teaching tennis. Teaching children, what is it? Tell me out. Teaching tennis.
Teaching Children Tennis the Vic Braden Way.
Say that again.
Teaching Children Tennis the Vic Braden Way.
Yeah.
Pretty sure.
That's fantastic. That's Tennis for the Future. All the information is in the second book, the children's book. But there's more on how to practice, which is so important. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think I'd agree with Daniel Coyle because it talks about small pockets and, how does greatness become, about how do you become great with the small pockets, whether somebody's trying to learn to play the violin or become a figure skater, whatever it may be. I used to tell people Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. Mm-hmm. So like any book for character, anything written by Jim Lair. Mark Bloom's book, I would tell people all the time. I had 2 people today send me a text, told me they read the book. Amazing Racers. It's about a coach, Bill Ayers, Central New York, cross-country team. Stoic and Spartan, the Stoughton approach. But yeah, I think you need to be a lifelong learner to say that there's 3. But with Braden, you got to get the nuts and bolts.
Yeah,
you just have to understand the nuts and bolts of stroke production, technique, and tactics. Jim Lair, the mental side. Then I think, obviously, to become an athlete too, the books that are written on everything from yoga to nutrition, the weightlifting, the whole package when it comes to being a better athlete.
Yeah, biographies for character and the
and I think that
as well.
It's amazing to me. Kids or parents can spend so much on just one private lesson, and then you say, "Have you read, this autobiography, that autobiography?" And get a library card and go.
Yeah.
And I think one thing to add about it, that goes deep instead of it. Just talking to my son on the phone. When it comes down to shallow thinking, deep thinking, that's where autobiographies are good. To find out the story from the beginning of a great player.
Right. Okay, moving on. Is coachability intrinsic? Is one born coachable?
Well, again, coming back to culture, the family, the attitude of the household, with obedience. I've heard you talk about people being humble. Mm-hmm. It takes a village to raise a child, but no one tells you where the village is or how to get there. But to be coachable, John Wayne, the great American actor, everyone's a coach. Everyone gives advice. Mm-hmm. Often advice is free. Doesn't mean it's worth it, but it's free. But
except for our website, because
that's
our courses are free. Right? It's
but,
worth it.
Can you take coaching? I mean, I think it's a great question to be coachable. ego kills, kids start defending themselves. And, I think if kids had a better idea of their circle and how small it is initially, and rightfully so, hey, you're a big fish in a small pond. The American ranking system, you're in this section, you're playing boys 14s. In some countries, you're 20,000 people ranked and you're 20,000 leagues under the sea. I mean, so, it really starts from the cradle to be coachable.
Yeah.
And, so I don't think people are born coachable. I think, we could talk about brain typing. That was one of the questions. I don't know if it made today's list, but how people are wired.
Yeah.
But then how their parents are wired, how their siblings are wired.
Yeah. Nature and nurture, how they grow up. We'll save that for an entire episode.
Yeah. And then, the type of sport that they're in. We have the junior song. I have kids, the two pronouns, I, me, and just say them over and over again. I, me, I, me, I, me. So, it's not like they have to work, say a ice hockey team, there's 5 skaters, if you're playing full strength, and, how do you work together? But practice partners. So, no, I don't think kids are born with it, but some kids are lucky because they get a dose of tough love sooner than later.
Yeah. I think for me, I mean, where I'm the most coachable is when I am humble, but you're humbled by your weaknesses and when you lose. So for me, the players that I've worked with, it's much easier to coach them or teach them something when they're losing or if they're down and out, where it's like, okay, geez, let's go back to the drawing board. I need work on my backhand or whatever it may be. Versus if they're winning, there's still maybe some things that need to be addressed, but they're kind of like, no, I'm all good. I'm just going to keep going how I am.
I think kids are better off with a small staff of coaches instead of just one private coach. When it comes down to, you learn from each other, but there's, different personalities, different styles. The information should be the same, but everybody needs a pat on the back. I think we have it backwards where it should be, one pat on the back and 4 kicks in the fanny. Some coaches that's just their brain type. They're more of a cheerleader. And have a character coach. But, then the parents have to explain the process. A kid gets in the car and they go, Mom, I didn't like practice today. The mother should go, man, it must have been an amazing practice.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Yeah. All right, moving on. So this has to do with parents. What role do you suggest for a tennis parent with a child who wants to be great? So what would be the role of the parent in that triangle of coach and player parent?
Yeah. Parenting. It's a noun and a verb. So it requires action with, I always tease, is, the Spanish word, you speak Spanish, loco, crazy. The local players go to local tournaments. The local parents talk to local parents, and it all is loco, crazy. When it comes down to, the parents need to be proactive. That comes back to Stephen Covey's, one of his 7 principles. There's a term, should be able to tell you, USPTA Pro wrote an article, a female a long time ago, senior moment, her name, conscientious neglect. You don't need to be one of the parents that is climbing the fence.
Yeah.
If people read about, Sampras's father, it's like, well, he was too nervous to go to the matches, and he knew what was going on if you read Pete's autobiography. So I tell people that as parents, I don't think you should shove, but you should push, and you should look for accountability. I don't have too many original thoughts, but here's one. The best coaches in the world are Jewish moms. You're going to be a doctor, lawyer, accountant, or you will die. And then the book came out, the what is it, the Battle Hymn of the Mother Tiger?
Yeah.
I work with I know you do as well. You work with a parent or parents from that are from China, and you just say, okay, is it piano or is it violin? Mm-hmm. But it's math. Mm-hmm. And but no, we're going to do this every day. And like say the grading system for the Indians, a lot of Indians in America playing tennis, A is grading system. Mm-hmm. A is for average. B is below average. C is can't have dinner. D is don't come home. And F is find a new family. So, no, the parents need to be proactive. I don't think the parents should just, trust the local teaching pro. Really, and again, I don't want to sound doom and gloom, and it's not just the fault of the teaching pro, but not that many teaching pros have actually taken a kid from first base to second base to third base to home plate.
Yeah.
And so many teaching pros, they're third base coaches. They're looking for someone that's just about to score. They're out at the tournaments handing out their business cards. I've growing up in ice hockey, I tell people all the time that hockey people have a filtering system for BS. Tennis players, tennis parents, they don't. When it comes down to an article that I wrote that's probably been the most read of anything I've written, published in different languages. We break it down to the buyer, the seller, and the taker. Mm-hmm. And I think you have that on the website, right?
Yeah, we have an article.
So the buyer, the consumer, the parent, they don't have consumer knowledge. And the coach, many times, the tennis teaching pro, they don't have product knowledge, but they know what they're selling. And they're selling the hustle. And the kid just becomes a taker, and they end up knowing what they want. I want this. They don't know what they need.
Yeah.
So, no, I think when it comes down to coaching, the discipline of what, are you, just like a kid, you're taking piano and, so I've coached so many kids over the years that play piano. I have these large hands. I could palm a basketball in the sixth grade. One time I had a coach tell me that was the only athletic ability I had. But I have three brothers, and my mother took them all to piano lessons. And by the time it was my turn, I never went to a piano lesson. So I always tell her, I could have been the best piano player in the world. But a kid is taking piano, and you say, okay, how much are you supposed to practice?
Yeah.
And they say 20 minutes. I go, you won't be any good.
Yeah.
I worked with a family from Wisconsin. They had 8 children, and they were all playing piano, and they only had one piano. And I know nothing about piano. I said, well, nobody will be any good. I said, you got to get another piano. And they did. They got a second piano, put it in the basement. Because if someone's really going to be good, you're going to have to try to pull them off the piano.
Sure.
Just like you have to pull a kid off the tennis court.
Yeah. No, I know from my own experience, my parents, as you know, were both in show business. They were artists, and my dad was working all the time, and my mom was the one that was taking me to tennis practice or lessons. And for her, she didn't, I don't think she does, sorry Mom, to this day, know how to keep score in tennis. And, it would have been nice just to, be pushed a little bit or have her understand the game maybe a little bit more. Her biggest concern was, did you swear and did you throw your racket? And so after a while, being, kind of a teenage punk, Kurt Cobain was my idol for a while. If you don't know who Kurt Cobain is, he was the lead singer of Nirvana, one of the great bands from Seattle. And but so I finally just said, hey, if I get to the semis or finals, you can come watch. But until then, don't come because I want to swear, damn it, and I want to throw my racket. But no, it would have been nice just to have a little bit of a accountability, like you said, a little bit of a push, a little bit of understanding for the game, but not super crazy. Just leave the coaching as far as the tennis goes to the tennis coach, but just the support obviously is important.
Yeah, kids don't come with directions. Tennis, it's hard to find the directions and to put that together. It's just seeing your mother didn't know how to keep score. I played Pee Wee football when I was a kid, but my older brother told me I was too small by the time I was a freshman in high school, so I ran cross country. And got bad information for train for hockey was go run distances. And I lived on this lake. It was almost 10 miles, 9.4 miles around the lake. And with that, my mother and father one time I went to a prep school in New England. They came to a parents' weekend. And there was no GPS. They got a little bit lost. And they showed up, and it was one of those races where like 300 kids. And not bragging, I was ranked number 10. I was ranked in the top 10. I was ranked number 9. It always sounds good. I was in the top 10. But it was not public schools. It was just private schools. And you just keep going down. But I was gutless, too, because I had talked myself into, I was just running for to get in shape for hockey. You know, I mean, we had teammates that are coughing up blood and going delirious, and I just talked myself out of going there, but did okay because I did so many miles in the summer. But I can remember my mother showing up. She goes, "Is this like cross country?" Because they were late. Is this like cross country skiing? And I tell that story because in cross country skiing they'll stagger and it goes off as a stopwatch. They don't all start at the same time, and in some races. So lots of snow where I grew up, but the point I make telling that story is that my parents never came to see me run. Is that parents today, they're so involved. They're so involved, and it's too much. I mean, it's like when they come to watch practice, don't you have a job to go to? And that's not being conscientious neglect. But at the same time, for some parents, they have to say, okay, let me get out there and actually feed balls. So I'm not saying there's one approach, but the 20 minutes for piano is not going to work. If your kid's getting up every day, say they go to regular school and they're not doing something for their tennis game or something for their fitness before they leave the house, and if you always have to, the parent always has to nag them. And a lot of times the passion's not there, but if the kid can start to have some success. Success will just breed success, and it'll just internally it's going to motivate the kid just to step it up. But they're only going to become good if they practice. So that comes back to the same thing with academia. I mean, the parents. I mean, their top parents know. The way I say that, the top parents, if they have a kid going to a top school, they know when the tests are. They know what assignments are due.
Right.
And so there's a lot of management involved to have a kid become a competent tennis player.
Yeah. All right. So hopefully that's helpful for you parents out there. Some words of wisdom. Next question is, what is the balance between working on technique and fast-paced competitive drills? We talked about this a little bit today. We brushed upon this. Oh, actually, that's a little bit more of the paralysis by analysis. We'll get to that one.
Well,
but technique and
let me just say this, and then you can answer. You need to understand instruction, destruction. But go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, for me, when I think of the balance between technique and fast-paced drills, is really, from a young age, or if you're a professional player, whatever it may be, if you're working on technique, you have to slow down. And I always relate it to playing a musical instrument. I play guitar, and if I'm going to learn a new song, you can't just start jamming right away. You have to go slow and get the finger picking and everything correctly, and then you can speed things up. And it's the same thing when you're learning a tennis skill, is you go slow first. So we got the blocked practice, the variable practice, and then the random practice. And so the block practice may be where you're just hitting the same forehand or backhand, volley, whatever it may be, just in the same place, maybe the same height of ball, same speed of ball, while you're really just working on the movements. And then variables where things are mixed up. Maybe it's a forehand that's higher, lower on the run. And then random, obviously, is just random. So you may be getting a low forehand, a high backhand, an overhead, and so it's mixed up more like match play. And the faster you can get to random practice, the better.
Right.
But you've got to go through that slow time. And then if you're able to speed it up a little bit and then it falls apart, and then you have to back off and slow down again. And so it's a slow process sometimes when you're working on technique. But
yeah, I've worked, I've been teaching tennis 46 years. I was 10 years in Tyler, Texas, Tyler Junior College, 15 years, Tampa, Hillsborough Community College.
It's good. You just keep reminding me how old you are.
Very old.
Yeah.
Tell us about senior citizens.
Senior citizens, although slow and dangerous behind the wheel, can still serve a purpose.
Our listeners need to know that I hear
Dumb and Dumber.
I hear that quite often from Mr. Fitzell. So anyway, Tyler Junior College, you walk to get my mail on an everyday basis, and would take the route on a college campus where we'd go by the football practice, generally not even stop, but just walk right by the football practice, and then also through the gym, the basketball practice. By the time I was there, women's basketball improved so much over a 10-year period. Same like with women's ice hockey, amazing. But the football team, many times they'd be waiting for the coaches to come out. They would watch so much film They would have fun. They could go. They would all line up, the offense on one part of the field, and the defense one part of the field, and they're just fooling around. And they would go through the plays backwards, forwards, backwards.
Yeah.
Because they'd watch so much film. A side note, to digress, that high school football, it's law that you have to get your game film to your next opponent by the Monday of the upcoming week, the week you're going to play them, and vice versa. But those other sports, they go very slow.
Yeah.
And
they have walkthroughs.
Of course, basketball. I one time was doing a tennis camp for Arvin Arvidan. You were with me, I think, in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And Villanova won the NC basketball championship. I think I have 84. So this kid comes to this camp we're running and goes home and complains. And it's kind of like the basketball kid going home, we don't ever get to scrimmage. We don't ever get to scrimmage. So the more he complained, his father said, "It sounds like my basketball coach. It sounds like my basketball coach." So the last day of the camp, his father comes in, big tall guy, and he had been on an NCAA basketball team. So it's kind of like John Wooden. In basketball, you would recruit these fantastic, best blue chip players in the country. And like a Bill Walton, say, "Okay, we're going to teach you how to dribble."
Yeah.
And you got to slow down. You got to self-evaluate. The great teachers like a Welby Van Horn. So the transition balls are good. I don't think that it necessarily needed to be mandated for competitive play, but I think that all levels of players can go out and slow it down and hit with the green dot, the orange ball. We have kids, I think it was one of the best drills. Your feet go 100%, 50% tennis, no winners. And then you say, okay, no winners till you get to the forecourt right up by the net. So it definitely varies. It's always inexact. With people, it's an inexact science. It's case by case. If someone really needs to work on their serve, and that's where we're the anti-academy. People are sent to us, and they could be a national champion. They could be, whatever, top 10 in their country. First 2 days, we make a study of their game. And unlike other academies where we're going to promote, hey, we're working with so-and-so, but they come in and go, okay, it's a fact. You're sent here for the right reason. You have a crummy serve.
Exactly.
Ego gets in the way. Can people actually go out and work on their game? They should be able to work on their game when they play. It's like Roger Federer. I didn't know you were supposed to win in practice.
Yeah.
But it's interesting how the kids have two sets of motor programming. You get them to work on technique, and they look really, really good. And then you say ready, play, and they just revert right back.
Yeah. So it's individualistic, but obviously you want to work on some slow basics every day, like where we start practices with, sometimes drop hitting and
the technical,
hits.
situational, competitive, and you certainly have a pie graph. You should start. All players start the beginning of practice with technique, end with technique. It's kind of like after you play, you really should go out, especially young kids. Young kids, say on the forehand side, their grip's going to go underneath during the course of a 3-day tournament because every ball is above their shoulder.
Right.
And so there, the breakdown, build-up process.
Yeah. All right, question number 8. How many tournaments should a junior play?
Well, it's an interesting question. Again, it comes back to case-by-case, individual. I like the number 100 at the end of the year, 365 days. You've played 100 matches. A tournament match, like Nick Bollettieri for the longest time. No such thing as a practice match. A match is a match. But again, kids know, hey, this is a tournament.
Yeah.
I do think that there's too much of this goes on in the tennis industry. We don't have ladders anymore. We don't have kids calling each other up. Juniors don't call up seniors, that veteran versus youth match. But I do think a lot of people are told, go play tournaments on the weekend because the pros don't want to work on the weekend. So if you have holes in your game, you got to take care of the holes in your game. Some people are in a situation where, and I think especially now, unfortunately, I tell people all the time, most of the time, the toughest thing for people to do in American tennis right now is find practice matches. Everybody should play everybody, and it used to be that way. Say, for example, a young girl, has it very difficult. One, older players don't want to play younger players. And then boys, macho male ego, they want to play girls.
Play the girl, yeah.
So it's something that's really not self-regulated. But 100 is a good number. Then the formula, if you could play 25% up, higher level, 25% below, 50% in the middle, your level. I think that one thing is that if everybody once a week would call someone up and play someone below their level, it would help tennis so much because more people would play. So I think 100 is a good number. Years ago with regular
You're
school,
saying matches.
Yeah, 100
Yeah,
matches.
100 matches, yeah.
Years ago, it was during the school year, 9 months, play one a month because your academics takes priority. And in the summer, play at least two.
Yeah.
So you add that up, that's 15. But, if you're playing, 26, you're playing, 2 a month, you're playing, like every other weekend.
Yeah. I know, I grew up playing a lot of my junior tennis in Southern California, and there was pretty much a tournament within an hour every weekend if you wanted to. And I think, I probably played 15 or 16 in a year. So, we're able to get quite a bit of competition, but these days it's tough. But
like some kid lives in the Intermountain. Just think of in Hawaii, you get 5 different islands. You got to get in a plane to go play an airplane, but
yeah,
to play a match. And so it varies from one kid to the next. And I like to ask kids, how many telephone calls do you make? I talked to someone the other day on the phone, and they have the young 14-year-old. They made a list on their own, 40 people they could play. You meet people, you get their phone number. That would help a young player out so much. That's the way it was years ago. Is a young 13-year-old is calling up an adult, a senior, and saying, "Hey, could you play a match with me?" And that's people need more matches.
Yeah. Get matches any way you can.
But think of like an indoor kid too. Is some kid in Chicago, in the business of tennis. There's a lot of cost for indoor tennis, and kid goes to a tournament and they haven't played any matches. They're just 6 on a court doing drills. I tell people from the northern climes to, hey, go support your program, but maybe you should, be part of the program every day, but twice a week. Those every day, but the two, is get your own court time and play matches.
Yeah.
And, you can have a standing match. You can say, okay, then you get to the point where you're beating someone. Doesn't matter. Beat him another way.
Yeah. I think, the last thing with that would be for me is when you do play matches, especially if it's a tournament, to try to get it filmed. That's where you get the little GoPros or whatever, the little things you can hang on a fence, and then you can film your matches and really learn from it and see, okay, this is what I need to practice on for a week or two, and then I can go try to play another tournament.
Yeah, and the kids, they need to be slapped across the head a little bit. The brawn versus brain, we do skills tests. So we got an 11-year-old boy and a 15-year-old boy. We do the skills test, and the 11-year-old boy has higher scores on a couple different types of skills tests. But when they play brawn versus brain, is the bigger kid wins. But he's just slapping the ball. And so you should be able to teach people to play in gears. Your attitude, your energy level, you're 100%, but at the same time, you're not trying to blast a young kid off the court.
Yeah. Okay, question number 9, do pros work on technique? I think for me, generally week to week, it's like, no, you're not going in, you're working on tons of technique. But there are some tweaks here and there, and you have training weeks where you might be working on something specific that you saw. It's like, hey, you need to work on this, or racket face is a little open here, or if someone's palm up, or let's adjust your toss a little bit. I put up a couple of videos recently, the other day on Instagram of Venus Williams. I watched her play a match on TV, her first round US Open, and I was like, whoa, finally, her footwork on her serve, she was really stepping across before where her hips would open up, and now she's finally bringing her pinpoint serve. She's bringing her feet together, so she's staying sideways a little bit better with her body. So, how long has she been playing? So there are players, obviously, that make those adjustments. Novak Djokovic, and things evolve, too, where maybe they don't even realize it.
Yeah, I think with with Williams on her serve. Somebody's been helping her out with what she's doing with her front leg, instead of locking it and leaning back, how she's turning. Because rotation starts from the ground up, the knees turn, then the hips.
Yeah.
With technique, my experience has been the pros, not enough do they work on technique. And it depends on the level.
Yeah. And the coach, I mean.
Well, first of all, like the future is the poor kids, the poor parents of the kids. There's not poor kids, the poor parents of the kids. That a lot of times they're out there playing and there's no coach. And it's, they'll hit for an hour and a half. You good? Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah,
I'm good. You good? I'm good. No, you're not good. That's why you're playing at this level. So what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? You have to work on both. If you go back to the history of tennis, you go all the way back to Bill Tilden, changing the grip on the backhand side, Don Budge on the forehand side, jumping ahead. I mean, there's so many, Borg changing his toss on his serve. There's just, people make changes. I was listening to a podcast with Nick Kyrgios just here during this pandemic, and he said, well, I've really been working on my game. And the person who interviewed him said, so when you come back, you're going to be serving volley and coming in behind that great serve? And then, he said, well, yeah, maybe a little bit, but can you imagine if he really had great volleys?
Yeah.
He has such an amazing serve. He's very athletic, but, he's not what you'd call a serve and volleyer. All you got to do is look at his matches.
Yeah.
So, would he open himself to learning? What a great time to work on your game when people, it was March, April, May, June, and there's no tennis. So like even in college tennis, I tell juniors, you have to understand that most college coaches, they don't want to have an 18-year-old show up on campus that's totally rebuild their game.
Yeah.
In all fairness to the college coaches, they want people who can play.
Yeah.
So the college coach needs to do more Band-Aid work. It's not, major surgery. But then are the players on their own? Are they doing the routines that they learned in juniors? I think a lot of times there's a separation. So a kid gets to the point where they're good enough to play college tennis, and maybe they're a junior and they grew up doing these certain technical drills like shadow swing in front of a mirror or whatever. Then they go to college and they forget that. It's like, well, I'm too good for that now. You're never too good for basics.
Yeah. You always work on basics. All right, last question. How do you avoid paralysis by analysis? This came up today in practice.
Yeah, paralysis by analysis. When it comes down to teaching as a science, teaching as an art, you have to really be able to simplify. But a lot of times it's a student overthinking it.
Yeah, exactly.
And becoming really outcome oriented, and then they have this wishful thinking. You mean if I do this? It's not fantasy tennis. You're not going to be a sensation overnight. So, I think the paralysis comes more from the kid being so tight that they want to win. But I do think that I used to use the term, the tennis tech monster. Trying to be impressive and the doctoral jargon and deceleration, acceleration, and just overloading.
I use that all the time, man.
Sorry, just too much. Just make it simple.
Yeah.
Let your front shoulder work like a reactive brake, and it's like on the serve. You ever been fishing? Can you do this? Can you cast? And yeah, I think you have to be able to simplify it. But I think also, too, is you have to be able to teach perspective. You have to be able to teach people to be relaxed.
Yeah.
I use a lot of locker room humor, chirping at the kids. And, it's amazing. It changes all the time. So I think now the kids, they're so far removed from that. They've been killed, the political correctness, they've been killed with kindness for so long. They can't really even laugh.
Yeah.
Come on, you got to be able to laugh. When it comes down to, you bend at the waist and you hit your serve in the bottom of the net. It's like, yeah, here we go again. How stupid can I be?
Yeah. No, I think for us, compared to most, I would say we're a little more critical and we're a little more detail oriented when it comes down to technique, especially. So I can see how some of the players we work with can get that where they're overthinking things. And that's what we were talking about today, where it's not, hey, you just got to get this idea down, and it's never going to be perfect. There is no perfect.
Yeah, no, I think I mentioned that in the first podcast, that when it comes down to, if you don't know details, the FedEx logo, there's an arrow in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And I've used this in coaching workshops. And some people, they don't see the arrow. Mm-hmm. So, I've done this where I've actually photocopied it, handed out to people. It's okay, take a crayon, find the arrow, and we're going to color it in red. But the point is that once you see that arrow, you always see that arrow.
Yeah.
And if you've been trained as a true technician, if you see that forehand go 4 feet behind their back, you see the racket go 4 feet behind their back.
Yeah.
And, actually, it is what it is. I mean, there's people who don't, they've been in the game their whole life, and they're a coach, and they're not a technician. They do not recognize palm up.
Yeah.
It's like this guy, great player, he lost today to Zverev Coric.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a pretty safe bet that the young guy, he learned down together, up together.
Yeah.
One thing, like say with Vic Braden, in my travels, and I've taught tennis in over 30 countries, how the swing is formulated, when the shoulder goes forward, action, reaction, the elbow bends. Mm-hmm. The only people I know that know that, I know people have, they've got a PhD in biomechanics, so they don't know that, is that the only people I know that and people that have either a direct or indirect training from Braden.
Yeah.
And the people, oh yeah, no, you're just worshiping Vic Braden. No, I'm telling you, is that you go to these tournaments and say, see, that kid can't serve too well.
Yep.
Even students I worked with a young guy who became a very good player. He's one in the country, Ryler DeHart. Mm-hmm. He's one in the country. They changed the birthday rule. Birthday's in March, so he was 3. But because of the rule change, he was 1. He was number 1 in the country. Then he was 1 in the NCAAs. He had to be 174 in the world. I remember taking him to work with Braden, and he had to regress palm up.
Yeah.
And, he had problems with his shoulder, but he never fixed. He actually went to Illinois, and he played for Craig Tiley, and Tiley was with us a long time, but they didn't. Right away, his freshman year, they put him in a tournament. I said, no, don't put him in a tournament. And he was the MVP in the tournament. And it was the plan was if he's going to go there, he could have gone to Harvard. He needed to go there and change his serve. Mm-hmm. So when it comes down to, it's interesting. Yeah, if for us, when it comes down to the players we work with, I always tell the parents, hang around, hang around. And if your kids hang around and they stay here, they'll be able to play. They'll be able to play singles, doubles, play all over the court. We've had 10 and 11, 12 kids be ranked 1 in the country in NCAAs. Yeah. We have all the film, but we don't go that route where let me put my arm around you and have a photo taken, and that early success is a problem. If you really want to win in the 12s, have a Western grip on the forehand. Just shovel the ball back. Doesn't matter how you swing at it with your two-handed backhand. You can have a palm up serve. Just toss the ball over your head. So with palm up, then you get the edge going this way and hit a little bit of spin. You need to be a human scoreboard. You need to cheat like crazy, and you can be really good in the 12s. And it's just interesting that it's like, hey kid, but the parents are totally confused because he's ranked high, and it's like. Your kid's game's a train wreck. Yeah. So.
Yeah. No. So. Yeah. Paralysis by analysis. I think what you said with the arrow. Once you see it, you can't shut it off. I remember I was in again an Illinois Challenger with J.J. Wolf a couple of years ago, and he said, "Gosh, I can't stop looking at and seeing things that other players. He could see the flaws in other players' strokes." And I said, "Well." Yeah, you don't have to overthink things, but you want to be able to do that because then you can come up with a strategic plan. And when you play somebody, you know their grips, you know where their flaws would be technically, and then you can exploit that. So, but I thought it's true. I know you've told us once before with Chad Berryhill. You could tell that story where he says, "Did he ruin it for you too?" But I think once people,
Yeah, I remember Dave Secker.
Yeah.
Because once you see it, it's not like you can really enjoy the match anymore.
yeah, it's like so.
I'll tell you a story. My son Connor, he got to the point where he's ranked 2 in the United States. He wasn't really number 2 in the United States because there's so many kids who had like ITF rankings or ATPs, but he had number 2 on the USTA rank list.
Right.
So he's a pretty good player. So a young kid from the Midwest, he played basketball, but he also played tennis. And he found out, well, I'm not going to play college basketball. So he went on and he played on a really good D3 team, almost won a national championship. And he was a good athlete. He came down, so my son practiced with him quite a bit. He actually came another time, but the first time he came was my son just said, "Hey, dude, you just try to hit the ball too hard." Mm-hmm. And my point there is that the kid opened himself to learning. It's like, okay, and I do think that's one thing about the celebrity coaches is Murray started working with Lendl, and he was working at a place. Delray Beach, were at that time the tennis director, a couple of the coaches, maybe 3 or 4 coaches I trained were working there. And one of the coaches, Carla Navarro Wojcik, she's married now, from Bolivia, she said it seemed like all Lendl said was, shh, shh. And then it put, Murray toned it down and he calmed down. And there's a book, it's a great book. It's really about Lendl. It's the man who made Murray. So
Cool.
Anyway, we're rambling. I hope that we make some sense to the listeners.
No, those were our 10 questions for this week's episode. Q&A. We'll probably do this once a month. I know that we're getting some questions, and you could keep the questions coming. Any questions or topics you want us to cover?
Why don't you tell them where to send the questions, and also, topics, people they've also recommended people for us to interview. People have said that they would like to be interviewed or be a guest.
Yeah, that's what I was just saying.
You were?
Jeez.
It's hard to work with you, Fitzell,
Shut up.
You're just not that talented.
All right, so you can send your questions or topics, suggestions.
But where do they send it, dumb and dumber?
Come on. Info@GreatBaseTennis.com. Drink your water.
Let me tell you about Dumb and Dumber, that movie. Fitzell told me my life was incomplete because I had not seen the movie from beginning to end.
Yeah, come on.
But I used to use the title, and I used to tell people, I said many, many times, a tennis lesson is dumb. But the parents are writing the check, so they're dumber. Sorry, but that's my take on Dumb and Dumber.
All right. That has been our hopefully not so Dumb and Dumber episode. Q&A until next week. Signing off. You can find us info@greatbasetennis.com. Hopefully I said that, but
Say it again.
I'll say it again. info@greatbasetennis.com. You can find us on social media @GreatBaseTennis. Everywhere, pretty much. LinkedIn. We're huge on LinkedIn right now. No, but Instagram, Facebook.
But basically what we're trying to do is just try to give out free content, trying to help improve tennis teaching.
Yep. GreatBaseTennis.com. All right, everybody. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Adios, amigos.
We'll talk to you next week. Adios, amigos.